So 6:04 we'll get started. So this is the Master Plan Steering Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, August 13th at 6 p.m. We are located right now in the Ritter Building upper level. Join us in person if you'd like, or we have a Zoom link that was posted in the agenda. So in accordance with meeting law, please be advised this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. And we will be using AI Companion as part of Zoom, so just be aware of that. So we will get started.
That's Sandra.
Oh, Sandra, can you hear us on the line?
Yeah, not really. I was actually gonna we don't have chat, but I was gonna type it in the chat that it does sound kind of muffled.
Okay. We're using a different speaker, so.
Okay, well you sound better now. Now you sound clearer.
Okay, I just need to be louder, or it's closer. So whenever someone's talking for extended periods of time, we'll pass you the speaker. Thank you. Let us know if you have trouble hearing again.
Okay.
Just feel free to speak up.
Recording in progress.
All right. So I just started their recording. I wasn't on Zoom. Okay. So public comment. Do you have any public comment? Committee comment. Committee comment. Next is vacant seats. So we have filled our seat for.
I have a vote.
Yes.
We have a new member.
Yes, that was just gonna go. Yes. Definitely don't have to go back. So vacant seats. So we have vacant seats for Conservation Commission. Teddy is with us from Concom, and so we're happy to have you.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. You wanna say anything if you'd like?
My name is Teddy Busa. I live at 318 Howard Street. I'm very excited to get involved with my local government. I looked at the MPSC goals, and I have to say I'm already pretty impressed with what you guys have as far as goals going forward. I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
You haven't shared that yet with the whole committee, have you, Ted?
I have.
Yeah.
I emailed it to them.
Okay, great. Do you have any idea when you will be discussing it at the Conservation Committee?
I do not know yet.
Okay.
We also have ZBA. So I've contacted them to let them know there's a seat open if anyone's interested, and one at-large member. So hopefully, one down this week, maybe more down next week. So we do have the meeting minutes approval. So there was 4 here that I had sent you all. I wasn't sure, because I know some of these are old. So I'll also share them. Let's see. So we have April 2024. It looks like most of us weren't there. And then we have May of 2024. So same situation, most of us weren't there. April 23rd of this year, some of us were there. And then this one was our most recent meeting.
For the 2024 ones, I vote we bulk approve because nobody will know any.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that motion.
So that's.
Second.
Yeah.
So we have someone on the line, so we'll do roll call vote for approval of the May 15th, 2024 and the April 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. Sandra? So I can't hear you.
Yes?
Thank you. Jerry?
Yes.
Ellen? Oh my gosh.
Teddy?
Teddy?
Yes.
Okay. And Tony.
Tony. So Tony says aye.
And I for myself. All right, so those 2 are approved, so that's great. All right, so we have April 23rd, 2025, and then the one most recent. Does anyone have any thoughts on if we need more time for these, or would like to approve them, or do we need more time to review them?
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the 23 April 2025 meeting.
Second.
All right, Sandra?
Aye.
Thank you. Jerry?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Teddy?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. So April 23rd, 2025 meeting minutes are approved. Okay. July 9th. Do we would like to approve these as well? Enter the motion?
Enter motion to approve July 9th minutes.
I was absent.
Oh, okay, so we'll need to,
Oh, no, I was at that meeting. It was
Right.
the 23 July. I'm sorry,
23.
Gary. You're correct. I'm sorry. Marathon.
yes, that one was the very, very long one. Okay. Did we make a motion in a second?
I made a motion.
I'll second.
Perfect. Alright, for approving the July 9th, 2025 meeting minutes, Sandra? Sorry to keep touching you.
I'm sorry, like eating dinner, sorry.
No problem. Barry?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Teddy?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Glenn?
I'll abstain.
Alright, I'll note that, and an aye for myself, so those are also approved. Alright, you guys are really testing my name remembering skills. Very bad at it. Okay. 3 times in a row, hopefully that'll stick. Alright, so on to our main topic of the night. Is Rami's here with us today, and we've been, meeting on the off weeks that we're not meeting, and he wants to present some of the implementation strategies as well as like document layout options for our master plan. Before we get fully into that, so as this week we all know I sent out he sent us the spreadsheet to give out all the committee feedback. So all of those were sent out to either the boards, committees / commissions, or to the people on this committee that are on those boards. So hopefully everyone sent those out to their boards. If so, please do so. And we are waiting until, should I admit to? We're giving until our goal of October 1st for them to provide us feedback. So we kind of have some time until then to continue on with the rest of our discussions. However, if anyone gets back early, then yes, that's great. We can start talking about things if we get feedback.
Did anybody say, hey, tell me more? Did you get any feedback from any of the committee chairs that you sent it to?
Parks Commission started looking at it pretty immediately and just had some questions about what if it doesn't apply to them. Then they were kind of confused as to how to answer it, and I was like, well, if it doesn't apply to you, just say it doesn't, because it was our best guess at like who it might apply to. And then also got some feedback that there were some things that the select board needed to be added to, one for Concom, so I resent out those two files to those committees. So far that's mostly been it. Beach director got back to me very quickly too, so kudos to him. So I sent out it's designed to like the staff as well, so like the Parks Department and then town manager. So hopefully we'll get a little bit from everybody. But if boards or whoever don't have the bandwidth to participate, we're not going to force them to do it. So maybe just give them a nudge if you didn't hear anything back. So like, hey, like consider doing this for us, please. Thank you. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to answer it yourself if you can. If not, feel free to reach out to Tony or I. And then we can consult Rami as needed. Back to the Zoom. All right. Rami, you're up.
Great. I'm going to send a request to share. I have my mic off so I don't have feedback. I don't cause feedback. Great. Can you hear me all right, Sandra?
says yeah.
And Tim. Tim is
And-
also
and Tim.
has joined
Hello,
us.
Tim.
Yes.
Okay. So, I let me see my screen.
I just need to move it over.
There we go.
So I have the agenda in reverse order from what was advertised. I hope that's not a problem. I'd like to talk about the proposed structure of the report first, and then sort of spend more detail on the implementation strategies that we think make sense for this. With respect to the report structure, there are a couple of different ways to do it, as you may have seen in the documents that we shared with you last month. We're sort of coming to coalesce around this particular structure. Now, this is just a proposal. We're not telling you this is how it has to be done, but this sort of makes sense to us, and I'll get into it in a second. The first is sort of an executive summary, just basically the TLDR, of the. So if you don't have time to read the whole thing, this is, what you need to know in a nutshell. Then a little bit of time spent kind of breaking down the engagement process. It's probably worth doing because there's been quite a bit of engagement. Highlight of these existing conditions. We don't think it makes sense to have the entire existing conditions in this document because it already exists and we can have that as an appendix elsewhere. And then the heart of the matter really is the recommendations, the thing that we've been working so hard on for the last several months. And then sort of followed up with the implementation, which is effectively the sort of roadmap, to how to make the recommendations happen.
Wait,
Sure.
existing conditions. Will they talk about current zoning conditions? Will they talk about those types of things?
So it's a document that we produced quite a while ago at this point, over a year ago. And it does. It talks about it. It sort of looks at it from a sort of land use, transportation, housing, sort of all the state required sections of a master plan report, including current zoning. And there's an analysis of zoning in that document.
I have not seen that document.
So
Who have you shared that with?
it's available on planludenberg.org. It's downloadable
Okay.
there. But I can send you a copy of it.
Am I the only one in the room who's not seen it?
No,
I don't know.
that's because a lot of us came after.
Yeah,
That happened.
That's probably why.
So yeah.
But it's there, and I'm happy to go through it with you at some point if you'd like.
Let's see. So, just curious, so we can all just kind of track it. Where can I find it?
Updates, I think.
Updates and everything is toward the bottom.
There should be a list near the bottom of the page of downloadable things.
Okay, so
December.
2023.
Of 2023.
Been with us for a while.
Yeah. I got on 24.
5 to 15 years. Land use, housing, economic development, transportation. All things. It's actually the type of thing I'm like really interested. I like really want to read it, but well, yeah, everyone can read it whenever.
Okay. You don't have to send it. I'll look for it there.
Okay. I can send you the link if that's helpful.
If I can't find the link, I'll
Okay.
let you know.
But so as I said, you know, the executive summary would just sort of have a high level kind of, in large part, graphic representation of what's in the document, and then sort of I think we would go through the engagement process. This right here is just a sort of overview of to date, the number of meetings we've had, the sort of the 3 surveys, the number of respondents we've had, the master plan meetings, committee feedback forms, which are to come. But I think we did this at one point, and I have started to add just the sort of number of contact moments that we had with the town of Lunenburg, and it's literally in the thousands. So it made me feel okay. We're doing what we've been asked to do, and I think that will continue before the completion.
You know, I've heard from some of the committee members that we haven't had enough feedback from the residents in the town. And when I look at this, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that there has been a significant amount of responses from citizens. And I think that when you look at the strategies, the things that we're now asking the committees, the 40 committees to come back with, they do reflect what I think that the town has been talking about in this master planning process. We want to maintain our rural look. We're concerned. I mean, we had a lot of discussion at the 9 July meeting about the prospect of having lots of townhomes, smaller houses, smaller lots. You know, there's concern about that. There's a certain amount of tension amongst committee members about that. And I think there's a certain amount of tension amongst the town itself about seeing, more smaller houses. But we're calling that out on the plan, that everybody understands that they want to see more affordable housing. And one of the ways to do that is by increasing the density, so the plan does talk about that. And we as a group have been discussing, our concerns about that. So the input that's coming into the plan says, what the strategies are reflecting is that, people are concerned about keeping the rural look, concerned about having lots of smaller, denser housing units. But the plan is going to address that, by getting this input from the 40 committees and what the ultimate recommendations will be for those various strategies. When I look at a master plan, with that kind of input, it says we're not talking about turning Lunenburg back into a farming community. We're not going to do that. It's just not going to happen. But we're not talking about turning Lunenburg into like a very urban area. So I think that the information that we've gotten from the surveys and from the contacts that we've had with the public reflect what we're now going to present back to the committees, and which will ultimately turn into the implementation piece, or that recommendation piece within the implementation.
I mean, comparatively speaking, I can say we've had a lot more responses because of the length, because of what we were asked to do. We were asked to really concentrate on engagement, and I feel like certainly in 2023 that was really what we did. Because of the response from the community, in large part thanks to this committee or an earlier version of this committee, galvanizing people to show up to meetings, to respond to the surveys, we got an unusually high amount of response from people, to the point that I feel it doesn't feel like a lot when you compare it to perhaps a survey that a corporation might be hired to put out in that way. But for municipal towns of your size, the amount of feedback we've had, the amount of people who've come to meetings is laudable and above average, well above average. So I think I feel pretty confident that the goals that we've sort of coalesced around. Maybe we can disagree about some of the particular strategies, but the goals, these 8 goals that we sort of coalesced around, are from that effort.
Right.
And I feel pretty confident standing behind the effort that we've done in that regard. So the existing conditions we've sort of alluded to. I would say the combination of the existing conditions, sort of learning about the community through these different windows, if you will, or lenses, plus the feedback that we had from the community, led us to the sort of 8 goals that we sort of developed through that process, and used the community engagement as a feedback loop to say, do we support these? And we always felt that these were ones that the town supported quite strong. So just for the record, I'll kind of repeat them. A range of housing options, protect so there is clearly housing challenges for the young families as well as senior citizens. It's your success has made it difficult for people to buy or rent in town.
I have questions. Are these color coded in some way, or is it just a random?
They are at the moment random. The idea as we get into the graphics is these colors then become ways to follow certain recommendations through the document.
Okay.
But we're not there yet. So, Teddy, to answer you, they're random for now.
Okay, thank you.
If that's helpful. The others, so the second issue is a lot of people, whether they're newcomers or have been here for several generations, value the sort of open landscapes, the open space that you have, a lot of which is farmland. So how, protecting that farmland and finding ways to support your farmers is something that we heard time and time again. The idea that small businesses should be an integral component of your sort of commercial and retail mix was also something we heard. The tied to number 2, and maybe we start to flip those, is the sort of building upon the already existing efforts for natural open spaces, both just for pastoral landscapes, but also for recreational opportunities. And then slightly different is this idea of community gathering spaces. These aren't sort of spaces to hike or necessarily to play ball, but a kind of more of a civic space, whether it's a town green, if you will. We heard
And larger.
and larger because of the sesquicentennial, or
Yeah, our 300th anniversary, not having a place to do a big time event. That has, been, once again, going back to, that's what people have been talking about. We want to have that kind of space. And there's a goal for that. We've identified that.
So that was very much a part of that. And the community wanted a space, a large gathering space for the 300th anniversary. As urban designers and planners, we think it makes sense to use that temporary event, because after all it is only one. But to use that in a way to kind of bring a civic space that kind of is befitting the town. It's an amazing, quintessential New England town in so many ways. And one of the ways it is not, doesn't have a town green in the center of the town. So that's just something to consider as we move forward. I think there are many ways to answer that need or desire. We heard time and time again, we need to optimize the use of our municipal buildings and properties. as you all are much more aware than we are, that's not a new desire. You've been that's been something you've been struggling with as a community for a long time. You'll see,
And we've not been successful because we don't have a plan.
and you'll see, and this is, I think, a shortcoming of where we've arrived. We still don't have.
Right.
And that's and we'll break it down in a minute, but you'll see that's a real lacuna. Right? We have so many recommendations for all the others, and I think there's 3 for this one. So, and they're very open and broad because I think it's very hard to find consensus, and that's a fact.
Are you done with the goals?
And then the last 2 is improve school facilities, funding and opportunities, and finally fostering safe and resilient town infrastructure. So that's sort of a catch-all for everything from safe streets to utilizing, getting the most out of your sewer areas, to being kind of proactive in the way that you connect different, conservation areas. So you start to think about your ecological footprint in a way that is in an infrastructural.
Go ahead.
If we were a more urban area, so once again, I'm trying to make the point here that this plan's heading in the right direction. If we were a more urban area, we would have something in there about transportation more specific, okay? We're not, and hence it doesn't show up as a goal, which says this has been done correctly. I think that foster safe and resilient town infrastructure might include some of that. But if we were an urban area, we would be shouting from the treetops for things like combination sewers, water systems, the connection to the MBTA system. We're not, and it's not in there, and it hasn't been part of those discussions. And I bring this up because we have to say to the people as we move this plan to a sale with the committees, we have to say, we think this plan's going in the right direction. We're not focusing on things that are unimportant to the town. We are focusing on the things that are very important to this town. And those other items, they aren't, So, I think that's the reason why I'm making this point, is that I think that we've listened, we've gotten input, and these goals are right on the money.
And I think that's an important point, because I think if it were a set of recommendations that are sort of generic and don't fit the town, then they have no chance of succeeding.
Right.
And that's not anything any of us are interested in.
I had a question kind of along the lines of the color coding. At any point, are these going to be ranked by priority, or are they all going to be seen as equal goals? Are we going to decide, what's coming? I'm not as familiar as a whole master plan, what the outcome is going to be. Like, will we pick one number over another and kind of rank them that way, or are they just going to be all?
So I think the goals are more or less equal, with maybe municipal buildings as sort of a special one, because it's just there's less consensus around the specifics.
Yeah.
But I think the others are more or less equal. Some of them are related, and when we tried to figure out where we put a specific recommendation, and I'll get to those in a minute, do we put it in this goal or do we put it under that goal? There were arguments to be made for both.
So ultimately, we want to have all of these accomplished in the next 5 to 10 years.
So,
To a
that's a great. So what is the expression I just heard again? Strive to achieve perfection, and along the way will meet excellence. Right. So, in other words, it's not Vince Lombardi. Right. I don't think that's what we're. It's unlikely that you will meet all of these at 100%. And there is also a different way to consider it, that there are sort of menu of options that as you evolve, and I'll get to the implementation piece in a minute, like as you evolve as an organization, as a town, because there are living things made of people who change.
Yeah.
You may choose to focus on some recommendations over others. If that makes sense. You already started in some way to prioritize by must-haves and less
Right.
nice-to-haves, and I think that's already starting to tell you a little bit about where you might be going. So just as an example, this is by no means the most important necessarily, but each of the recommendations in some way would have all of these pieces of information. The recommendation itself, as it's currently worded, or as it will be worded once we get feedback from all concerned parties. A description that might be a little longer than that. I think what we have here is probably too short, probably a paragraph, maybe two if necessary. And then sort of identifying funding sources, identifying cost and rough order of magnitude costs, in other words, small, medium, large, and then same with the time frame. Is it something that can be done short, medium, or long term? And then the kinds of the plan areas that this particular recommendation addresses. And I mean by plan areas, I'm talking about the sort of the pieces of the by state law that you have to address in a master plan.
And what is the gray and the green? The gray and the orange
So
difference?
if it's gray, it's not part of it's sort of, you've turned off that button, right?
That we don't need to do that, or that we
That this particular recommendation doesn't address,
got it.
for example, housing, public facilities, or land.
So they're all gonna have the same plan areas, and then
Yes.
gray is
Yeah.
we don't need it, and orange is
So,
something we
so
do.
those seven,
Okay.
pieces, those 7 buttons
Mhm.
represent what the state says should be on a plan.
Exactly.
So what you're showing there is that 4 of those 7 buttons are turned on with this
With
prioritized
this.
sidewalks.
And this is all an example.
Right.
Right.
That's visually very
Yeah.
attractive.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like this visual. I also would be interested in for the prioritization, if we were to do the cost and the time frame, on one column we could do the 3 rows of 1, 2, 3 cost, and then time frame short, medium, long, to have kind of it visually of this is short with low cost, this is a long term with a lot of cost, and kind of use that as one
I
prioritization.
agree. I think this is our first pass, and we can do much better than this. I mean, this is great.
No, I really like this. It just prompts me to think of it in that kind of way. Yeah.
I also think you mentioned adding more language, but I'm afraid people won't read
So-
that far.
So the more languages for those who really
Okay.
want it. I would separate that from that. There's a series of kind of quick graphics. that
Yeah,
you see, okay, all
and
right.
then follow.
What is this?
Yeah.
Well, I want to know
Okay.
more, and then there's maybe a paragraph or two, and funding sources are
Yeah.
also important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that'll be the interest of a lot of people.
Definitely. We have to do this.
And possibly a cost range. I know it's all relative, but I think that might be helpful. Because everyone's perception of cost is a little different. So maybe giving some sort of range. if
Like the
possible.
index, the $1 sign,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
$2 sign, and the $3 sign. It's hard to put a price against this, but is it a $50,000
Yeah.
project, a
Yeah.
$500,000 project, or a $5 million project?
And
Something like that.
we can do that. So orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sandra, can you hear us?
Intermittently, I'm getting the gist of what we're talking about. So the last thing that I heard is that maybe putting in numerical things here for the pricing, so people have a better idea. Is that correct?
Yeah, or at least some sort of legends. So at the beginning, perhaps, of this section, so you understand. One is, up. Let's just say up to $50,000. $2 signs is up to $1 million, and
Does this slideshow something you could send us
Yeah,
later
yes,
too?
yeah.
Even though I know
This
it's not
becomes
finalized at all,
part
but
of the-
just to look at.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, that makes.
I don't necessarily want to go into each of these because I think we were up to almost 100 recommendations, and we've done this. I think not to death, but to a level of refinement where we're now waiting for feedback from others. So I don't. In fact, it would probably be the wrong thing to start to tear these, or not tear them, but to analyze them again now until we receive that feedback. But we're just starting to, you can see, for example, we've kind of coalesced all of our recommendations with respect to the range of housing options to 11, right? So there are 11 strategies that we could look at. And we intend to do two things. One is to kind of do a synthesis of the goal and how each of these could lend a hand in achieving that goal or go some way to that. And then the other is to look more specifically, a little bit like this slide, at each of the 11 goals. Right? Farmland still has quite a few strategies related to it. And these were pared down considerably, but I think it's also a testament to how important this one was. The small business development within existing commercials is 8. None of this is new. It just doesn't look like a spreadsheet anymore.
Thank God.
This is
I
work.
know. I like
Well, we'll have to go back to the spreadsheet for a little while, but the intent is that we'll take it back out and make it sort of legible in other ways as well. Also, similar number with regard to open spaces and recreation, the community gathering spaces. The municipal buildings is quite short. In fact, it only was 1, and I added 2 of the new ones that you had come up with as a committee, and I said, well, maybe they make most sense here. We can discuss if that makes sense or not, but at least it's not lonely on its own.
No, I think they fit well here. Yeah. And I think you mentioned something about making that square for each of these.
Yes.
One. So
Yes.
like one. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Every single one has one.
So you can imagine, like in the final document, I mean, and we're kind of thinking of it as a printable thing, but also, who prints these things anymore? It's actually, most people are going to look at it on a screen. Each is a sort of a slide, or maybe a spread with 2, like one on each side of a spread. School facilities, quite a few.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Given it's the town's biggest single expenditure.
Which is also pretty common.
Yeah.
And then this one is 9. I think it's about the same. You had, as a group, come up with 5 kind of outside of the ones that were directly tied to goals. I took 3 of those and tried to put them into clear categories. There were 2 that are still, I don't know quite where to put them yet. I know it's hard to see on the screen, so I can read them to you if you like.
There's a dial on the projector, so maybe it can be made a little bit better. I don't know. Like binoculars.
That better?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Where did the green community one end up? Was that in
It ended up in the resilient infrastructure. So the ones that are still don't have a home is review all bylaws and update as necessary. Continue on a 5-year review basis. I don't know exactly where that goes yet. Open to suggestions. Evaluate all town administrative functions to be able to be assessed through online actions.
And resilient infrastructure too.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that might be the right.
An alternative would be to put it under the municipal building, because that would have an impact.
Yeah.
And we had Kim and I had a discussion today, a running discussion, because when I walked into this room at 1:30, it was an absolute disaster. And fortunately, we were able to get it cleaned up with Brian Gangris's help, and we got some support for how to set this up, the Zoom meeting tonight. You know, I'm the advocate for this, and one of the things that I want to see happen is that this master plan needs to acknowledge that the way the town does business is changing. You know, 50 years ago, you paid your taxes, you walked into town hall. You had to do some business, you saw the town clerk. You had some questions about how much taxes you were being assessed, you went to town hall. We're not doing that anymore. And I think that our running challenge for the day was we have one room that has an optimum setup for doing Zoom meetings. And that's town hall, which requires a significant amount of labor on the part of the PAC to produce those meetings. And then we have a secondary meeting room, which is in the basement of this building, which has an owl. And, you know, it's like we ought to have an approach to technology that's consistent across the town. Like the library probably should have an owl. You know, the Eagle House should probably have an owl, or something that says we're doing business differently than what we used to. I mean, 5 years ago, you know, pre-pandemic, everybody came to a meeting. You know, no one did this at home. No one did this digitally. That was 5 years ago. And one of the things that I want to see happen is I want to have a master plan component that says the town's thinking about how it's going to use automated activity to make it more responsive to the citizens of this town. And, you know, with regards to AI is built for things like tax assessment.
Yes.
You know, we started the permitting process with OpenGov.com. And once again, that was prompted by the pandemic, because building contractors couldn't come into the building department to pull a permit for a building because the building commissioner wasn't in the building. You know, so fortunately, OpenGov allowed contractors to pull a building permit via that program. You know, one of the things that I was surprised to see, OpenGov doesn't have an app yet for an iPhone or an Android, which was really kind of surprising because OpenGov has been around for a while, which means that if you're a building contractor and you're Brian Gingras and you're managing a building permit process, that you still have to do it from a desktop application. And OpenGov.com is probably the most widely used of that type of software in the country today. But I think that there needs to be a part of this plan that says that the town is going to look at how it's going to automate and digitize every activity that it does. And, you know, Kim's found a grant application that was for 2025. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was the competitive IT grant. They had it for, you know, due February of this year. So I'm hoping that thank you, quieter. I'm hoping that they renew it again for next year. So I'm going to reach out to Kara, maybe, you know, Jen, town manager, to see if that's something that they have visibility to. Because one of the biggest things that I've learned from, like, you know, chairing this committee is how difficult it is to find a room and make a meeting and have it work at best, you know. And I don't even consider town hall a good spot for a Zoom meeting. You can't see the screen. You don't know what's even happening. You're just sitting there talking, like people can see you, but you can't access the screen. Downstairs in this room is the only one that has both things, a screen and an owl. This actually has just pull down for the projector. I had to bring this projector, and Tony had to bring his Bluetooth speaker.
And she had to bring her.
And I had to bring like everything else.
Yeah.
You know, the Eagle House just has a pull down. They don't have a projector. The library room, their projector's broken, or their pull down's broken, so they only have a projector and they can only project like on the wall. And in the library conference room is the only other one that has both things, a screen and a audio and a speaker. So it's like between the technology needs of having a Zoom meeting and then, oh wait, that meeting room's booked. You know? There's no way, like it's crazy that anyone's able to find a meeting room and actually make it happen. So I would really love to see the town have some way to improve the technology. If it's consistent across each room, that's even better. But like to at least have a way to present something and for people to hear you online in each room would be absolute basic. So I'm gonna try to see if that grant is in and try to work to see if there's anything that is.
But here's the dilemma, and this is the reason why I think this is an important component to go into the master plan, is that the only person who really understands the management of the day-to-day IT business for the town is Karen McCarthy, who was part-time up until a couple months ago. And there's not a single committee, probably the one committee that dabbles in technology is the PAC. But I think that this is not really defined as within their scope today. But once again, I mean, I think it's more than, and going back to the OpenGov, thank goodness Brian Gingras is an advocate for that, because he's now pushed other functions, like the Conservation Committee now has the ability to tell people who want to apply for permits to the Conservation Committee to use opengov.com. The Architectural Preservation District, which has a request for review for people who want to do things within the Architectural Preservation District, they now can use opengov.com. And, so it's moving. Brian's been pushing this. Now, there's still one, and this is, I don't mean to pick on the town clerk, but opengov.com stops at the town clerk's front door. It's not something that they're embracing. Yet, that's where all of the town records are formally kept. And we ought to have a way to make sure that everything that someone has done digitally seamlessly migrates into the town clerk database, not show up with a piece of paper that could then turn into, a bin that's stuck in TC Passios and needs to be purged. So I think this is a big component for the master plan, Rami, and I think that we need to figure out the right place to put it.
It sounds to, do you think that covers what you're, I guess it does.
I don't think it includes like the technology parts for town meeting rooms.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I was thinking maybe it goes into the municipal building, bucket.
As well as like meeting scheduling. Right now we use a spreadsheet that someone handwrites to schedule their meetings.
And that's one of the easiest.
It is.
Right, we
That's
have Outlook.
literally
just
one of the
make the
easiest
rooms.
things to do.
Yeah. So maybe once we get the feedback and everything, and when we're going back and revising these, we can modify this to include like a advancement of the technology or create a new one that fits somewhere else.
And then I would say that it fits easily into town facilities.
Yeah. Because it could alter the way the town facilities are developed. You may not, like, the one big thing here is storage. If stuff is stored digitally, now some of the stuff has to still be on a piece of paper because the state of Massachusetts requires it. But that's changing too. And I think that rather than us, waiting for it to change and then saying, oh, we got, so many bins we got to now digitize, which is what we're doing right now with stuff that's over TC Passios, which is crazy.
So for the bylaw, so if this one fits in the facilities, for the bylaws one, I feel like that fits into a couple different ones because it's just every aspect of each one that has its own bylaws. We have like housing bylaws, we have like land bylaws, we have all of them. Some of it falls in multiple spots.
Maybe each one could have that little bubble.
Yeah.
Happened to them.
I think Romy might have stopped sharing.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my mouse.
Sorry, we don't have one of those.
Oh, we probably do.
I'm trying to find my cursor. Sorry.
I'm pretty sure we have a mouse in this building. You know, Rami, we can't do the easy ones like scheduling and having owls in right rooms. I mean, that really worries me because the more complicated stuff, like how do you bring AI into the tax assessor's office? And how do you, bring AI and that type of stuff into the town clerk's office and the select board? Those which are constantly dealing with permits.
Yeah, the biggest struggle shouldn't be scheduling and finding a room for a committee.
Yeah, right. And that
That should be the easy part.
that should be really easy. The other stuff that should be a little more complicated, and it is. Yeah, like all the permits that the select board reviews, those things are all filled out on. I mean,
Yeah, paper.
yeah.
Well,
They start out as a form, which is crazy.
mhm.
And this one could be Right. I can't spell this. Okay. Any other thoughts about the structure of this? Obviously, the last piece of this is implementation, which I sort of wanted to talk a little bit more about.
I mean, is any of the other planners that you've been working with, have any of them been faced with the request to do more with digitizing and managing town business online? You work with a team that does other.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask them.
I think it'd be interesting
I mean,
to get some
I think-
input.
I can't speak to right now, but I know 10, 15 years ago there were grants out there to digitize and everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And it is an initial heavy load because you have to literally take everything
And scan it.
and scan it. But that stuff has gotten faster. Frankly, a lot of places kind of did it,
Yeah.
not in the 2000s, 2010s. But I'll ask Evan Buckenberg and Eric and see if they have any more recent experiences.
I think focusing on something like OpenGov, say how many times have done plans where OpenGov has been a part of the plan? That might be a good starting question for that discussion.
I'm just gonna take some notes.
Yeah, and if there's any other grant programs that I know of.
Plans have been mostly about physical stuff, sewers, streets, buildings, schools, not necessarily town operations.
Well, I mean, they're related, but
Yeah.
this particular one.
Yeah, Ashburnham implemented a e-permitting system. But this is all the towns that have done it. It's all online on mass.gov. There's the Community Compact IT grant recipients.
Oh, these are the recipients of the compact grant?
Mhm. So it's all a variety of different things, basic to complicated. 360. Implementation of Office 365. Birmingham.
Wow.
They always got our meeting schedule.
I mean, the trouble obviously with upgrading your
Budgeting software.
technology is the minute you have it's already
Something else
Okay.
is coming, yeah.
That's an
It's like an
interesting one
iPhone.
right there. The SCADA systems.
and sometimes it's to your benefit to be late to the game because you're not
You're only doing
Less
it.
yeah,
competitive.
better stuff is already
Yeah,
there.
you're only doing it once, not.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's one here for Huntington that talks about SCADA, which is supervisory control for their water system. And having years of experience with that at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, we did that 25 years ago, where we computerized connections to like maybe 12 or 1,300 heating and air conditioning systems that came back to our central, response desk. And fortunately, Lunenburg doesn't have that type of a challenge, but that's the kind of a scope that that grant paid for.
But also ADA compliance improvements for website enhancement, automated water meters, hybrid meeting technology. Yeah, that's right up our alley.
The town doesn't own its own water system, which is another reason why we would focus on something like that.
Yeah, financial management systems are definitely possible.
I just want to figure out a way to have the Board of Assessors do better assessments.
So, with respect to implementation approaches, I mean, in some ways, it's the most important piece of the plan, because you can have all the great ideas you want, but if you don't have a way of, making sure that monitoring, evaluating, and moving things forward, they remain great ideas. So we looked at a series of implementation approaches, and they kind of break down into these three categories. One is sort of having an implementation committee, which might be, if you are not exhausted by the time this process is over, it could be an evolution of this committee or something like it, where, you both hear from different aspects of town government, and, both staff and committees, see and assess the degree to which the plan is being implemented. So you sort of
And like support how to help implement.
yeah. The other, and this is kind of something worth considering as well, is what we call a filter checklist. So, as thorough as this process has been, there will inevitably be things that come up before you get around to your next master plan update, or events that possibly change, either cataclysmic events or great events, like you landed a unexpected financial windfall. How do you use it? It happens. And you need to kind of evaluate it against this process. And so that's what we kind of call a filter checklist. And then the third is a implementation table or roadmap, sort of looking at where you are in along the way. So, what are the resources, both in terms of human resources, financial resources, change of zoning if necessary, to make it happen, and to be able to kind of methodically check along the way that those things are happening.
Yeah, I think 3 is absolutely needed. 1 would be like help it a lot. I don't think it's gonna happen if people aren't like, kind of pushing for it. Like someone's not instructed to do it. And then 2 would be more interested in seeing about. It's not super like clear to me exactly like what it means, but
Sure.
looks interesting.
So the implementation, we talked about it a little. You sort of define your ways of evaluating it, and then use those metrics to evaluate progress. I don't recommend that you meet every 2 weeks. It could, we looked at so many different ways. Some meet monthly, some meet bi-monthly, some meet quarterly, some meet twice a year, but there's some sort of regular effort on the part of town volunteers to sort of hold the town to account, if you will. I don't mean that in a bad way, but just checking on, okay, we said we were doing this, where are we along that way? It also offers the ability to sort of collaborate with other entities, whether they're sort of staff or volunteer committees, to say leverage the degree to which the goals are being met.
I also find a benefit of, reaching out to other towns that have had, similar problems and seeing how they've kind of gone around to resolve them or what they've done, whether it's worked or not. It's always good to talk to, other people in your situation. Like, what did you do? They're probably more than happy to hopefully talk about it.
I think it's a great idea. I'm trying to think of anywhere that's actually done it, and for one simple reason, that because all of the committees are volunteer, you sort of have you all are doing amazing work, but at a certain point, people run out of steam or their priorities change. So there's a turnover that makes it sometimes challenging to do it in a formal way.
Yeah, but just like if there's a specific like one or two things that were like, hey, like we could use, like you've done this, like we can see this in your town, it's working.
Yeah.
Like, was there anything in particular that would be useful to know?
I've been thinking about this for a long time. I think that there ought to be multiple ways of connecting town business to the plan, and town business should be connected to the master plan. If you're doing something, you should be able to go into the plan and say, this is the reason why I'm doing it. And two specific actions, three specific actions that could take place. I think that a master plan implementation committee should make a report on progress being made on the plan at special town meeting in the fall and annual town meeting in the spring. And I think that that would require us to go to the committees and for the committees to bring information back to the planning committee that says, this is what we're doing, this is how much we've done in relationship to this plan. The second thing that ought to become part of this process is that no warrant gets in the booklet unless it can be attached to the plan, or a reason why it's not attached to the plan. Now, some of the stuff that goes before town meeting votes, the warrants, they're like changing pots of money from this fiscal year to that fiscal year. But there's always a reason why we're doing that. I mean, even some of the nuts and bolts kinds of warrants that go before the town could be linked to one of those 9 goals, and it should be stated that way. So that would be maybe the second way of managing the implementation of the plan, is that when you say I need to have a warrant, whether it be the town manager or the select board or the Parks Commission or the Architectural Preservation District Commission or the Conservation Commission, that when they say I want to put this warrant, here's the reason why in relationship to that town plan. And then that keeps the warrant connected to the plan and keeps the plan visible to the voting public. I think that would be another way of doing it. And then the third way of doing it, for 5 years, I've been watching select board meetings off and on. And the one agenda item that always gets pushed because we're out of time is when the select board says, well, let's review our progress against our goals. And I think that one of the reasons why that happens, where there's never any discussion, it's always on the agenda. We're going to talk about meeting our goals, but it never happens because the press of business keeps the select board from saying, well, how we met our objectives, have we created goals. I think if you say to the select board that your goals should be linked to this plan, and then periodically, and the select board can then discuss and decide, we're going to do this quarterly, we're going to do this semi-annually, maybe right before the town meetings or right after the town meetings, where the select board says, let's look at how we've done against implementing this plan, because it is the top level committee that deals with all of the other committee business below it, and kind of the same for the school committee, because it's the other big 500-pound gorilla that we have to deal with. And I think that those tangibles, saying you do business daily, weekly, monthly, it's got to be connected to the plan. Is that too much, Rami?
I mean, it's all to do with the willingness
I was just gonna say, I think
of.
it goes back to what you were saying, like, who's gonna do that? What if we're all not there
Well, I
at
think
that point?
And that's why the last plan that I reviewed, we had like a 10%
Right.
completion
Yeah.
rate. Yeah.
what we have to do is we all come and do stuff. Every month, every week, every 2 weeks, we all do stuff. That stuff should be connected to this. And we just need to say the reason why we're doing this. I don't want to create something separate. I think that's one of the reasons why plans fall apart, is that I want to create something that's integrated to what Conservation Committee's doing, what APDC's doing, what the Select Board's doing. And all those actions should be driven by this plan.
So every committee should have their checks and balances.
Yeah.
Every committee should be
Yeah.
matching it up with the goal and making
Right.
sure
It's like,
this is happening.
and
Not just one implementation committee on their own, encouraging people to do that,
and that's why
because
like
that's where it might fall apart.
with the spreadsheet that was sent out, it has all those questions on the top.
Yeah.
The first one is like, is this like relevant to your committee? Like, do you have policies that that go along with this? And then as you get further, like to the second or third question is like, what would be the impact of doing this?
Mhm.
Like, so we're getting all the feedback of, the risk of visibility, and then like, how does this fit into your committee's goals? So if they're like, it doesn't, then we know there's going to be disconnect. If everyone's like, oh yeah, this is exactly what we plan to do, sounds like the plan will be a lot easier to go with than we already have.
Is there a way to put that in the plan? That once it's kind of finalized and we're implementing it, that each committee would have to have their own way to kind of filter or make sure their checklist is.
I mean, there are different examples. I mean, there are some where this committee sort of asks other committees to say, so what have you done
Yeah.
that, and how does it fit with the,
And there's like a
with the
standard
plan.
checklist that you could kind of.
and you can kind of give them a checklist or a list of things.
Because like you said, we're sending this all out to everybody. They're essentially agreeing, even though we have the final say of what goes in it, but they're essentially agreeing, giving their input on what they find important as well. Then you would think it wouldn't be so hard to put on their agenda every time they meet that this is something that they should be focusing on.
But you want to make sure that it's done in a way that's not antagonizing.
Right. Right, that's what I'm saying. I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Like how
yeah.
do we do that without?
I don't want to
Being
create
nagging and-
more work for any volunteer.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just look at the school committee. All right. One of the we have a lot of stuff. Like I think there's 13 items in this, but one of them is stuff like coming up with a 5-year plan. Well, the school committee is doing that now. I mean, the school committee is now meeting in this with the tri-board. So what it says is that we have a tri-board meeting structure now, and that's to look at how schools are going to be financed. That's in the plan.
Mhm.
So what we would do is we would just say, like, connect and say, we're doing that because the plan says we want to have a forecast. What you don't want to do is you don't want to stop doing something and still have it in the plan. Because maybe what that means is that now it's time to adjust. Now it's time to change. This goes back to the business of perfection versus excellence. We change the plan. I'm not proposing that we create a separate reporting structure. I'm just saying that the various committees need to be doing stuff against the plan, and if they're not, they need to say why, and then feed that information back to this implementation committee that says, well, we got a 5-year plan, and we're continuing to do this, or we can't do a 5-year plan and here are the reasons why. And that means that you gotta look at, how does it impact this planning process? That may be an issue, but that's not to say that we're creating additional work. It's just to link that activity back to the plan. I think if you create a separate committee, which people will then say, oh, they're responsible for plan implementation.
That's kind of what I was going with.
Yeah, we
Like,
don't
I was
want to
trying
do
to-
that. Yeah,
That's what I
don't want
was-
to do that.
That's where I was
That
going
will
with it.
not work.
That everyone needs to kind of be responsible,
Yeah.
not just one set of people.
Yeah, but if there isn't somebody there that's going to kind of look over your shoulder,
Mm.
people aren't going to do it. I
No,
mean, they might, but probably not. So even just the act of like having somebody there that like kind of checks in periodically, it won't motivate everybody, but it will motivate some maybe. But I think it's we have to convince the planning board of whatever our implementation strategy like recommendation would be, because they're ultimately the ones that decide if we have an implementation committee or not.
when I first got on the ABDC, we were doing every year a report that went to the town manager. I didn't get asked to do a report to the town manager this year, and I didn't do one last year either. So like, what happened to that requirement?
That's right. Well, no one asked you to do it, so you didn't do it. Exactly.
Well, I don't think anybody got asked to do it. I think that
It
requirement
just
fell. I
happened,
think that
yeah.
requirement fell apart. I mean,
And it's also going to take communication, which
Right.
is a historical issue at times, that
Yeah.
everyone needs to be communicating about how the plan is going. Are we reaching our goals? Are we working towards our goals?
Yeah, and when I was reaching out to some, like all the committees, a lot of people don't even have town emails. Like chairs of boards don't have town emails, and I couldn't email them. Like how basically, like it's like that's a basic thing of like how do we contact you if you don't have a town email by choice. I think that shouldn't be allowed. You should be able to contact anybody because otherwise they're not going to be able to get information or be communicated with. So, but communication is huge. And if there's roadblocks to that, we have a system set up. We have all open town emails. We got to use it.
So the second, I think the implementation, this will require a lot of discussion. I think we sort of talked about it briefly once or twice before, and perhaps in smaller groups. But I think it's useful to have this discussion with this group now, recognizing that there are going to have to be discussions. I think with planning board, and select board as well. I suspect as to what is the appropriate organization of this. But I think in general, having some inheritor of this effort be responsible for tracking and communicating progress as you move forward is a no-brainer.
but every town function that's got a committee or a board needs to be a
On board.
master plan implementer.
Like they're responsible to implement it,
Yeah.
but that one person is like accountable for managing it.
Yeah. And they're responsible for providing that input back. We're not doing this, we are doing this, we're not doing this.
So, this isn't necessarily the last word on this, but some sort of idea of a series of, let's call it, gates, right?
This is complicated.
When something comes up that is not anticipated in the plan, by the way, that happens as always.
Just kind of what you were talking
Yeah,
about.
right.
That makes sense. See.
So how do you, does this new possibility, does it support a goal? Which goal does it support? How does it contribute to the overall kind of strategies that we've agreed are important to us? How can you measure its contribution? And then finally, let's weigh the what's the right word? Pros and cons of accepting it or not accepting it as you move forward. It kind of fills each of those steps, and that's from the sort of largest, perhaps, to the most specific. then it would make sense to incorporate it into moving forward. And I think this can be used both for new initiatives. That's that's how we've always thought about it. But I think it could also be used for the sort of discussion you're considering as well.
I have a perfect example of how this might work. We've been talking about merging Historic Commission with the Architectural Preservation District Commission because there's a lot of overlap between what we do. The distinct difference is APD is what drives the APDC, whereas the Historic Commission looks at everything. We've been talking about that merger, but more importantly, just so we have the same body of people, like, a couple members of the Historic Commission are on the APDC, vice versa. It's like, why do we have two commissions with the same people? So we've been talking about merging, but more fundamentally significant is we've been talking about taking the types of authority that we have within the APD, which is much different than the authority that the Historic Commission has, because one is driven by state law to do things under the Historic Commission, and we are doing things under a town bylaw. And, so if we would actually we have to go to town meeting and say, we want to have a merged commission, and we want that authority to be the same for the EPD townwide. Huge change. That filter checklist would catch that, because now we have an entirely different set of direction for how we're going to manage. Because right now, the APDC can say to somebody who has a building in the APD that's old and historic, you can't tear that building down. You can't let that building fall down by demolition, by neglect. You can't do that. Whereas in historic, outside the APD, people can do whatever they want to do with their old buildings. We can delay it, but we can't stop it. That's the state law. You can delay it, but you can't stop it. But if we took the APD bylaw and used the state's regulations, we could then say to someone who's got an old building outside, you can't tear that building down and you can't let it fall apart. Which is a huge difference. So that's the kind of stuff that would show up in that filter checklist, because that's a dramatically different process that the town would then be doing business by. And going back to my example of no town warrant can go to the voters unless it's checked against the master plan. If we brought that one, filter checklist would say, it ain't in the master plan. This is a significant change.
Or at least the first two gates.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because the others are a matter of debate and discussion, but does it to demonstrate how it supports a particular goal or set of goals in the master plan? That seems like a pretty easy gate to check. And then the second one is in what way does it contribute to a particular strategy or recommendation?
If anything, it's good to keep in mind for any decision to stay on track.
And then the third one is a little more in the weeds, but looking at the kind of resources, human and financial, needed to kind of implement each recommendation. And it's kind of a roadmap in matrix form, if you will. The ones on the left are things that are kind of needed in all implementation tables. The ones on the right will apply to some implementation tables and not others.
No surprise, North Andover does that. They have resources.
They do. Yeah.
I like the page periodically updated.
They have resources too.
I like the parts on the right, like town meeting action required, or like maybe what actions are required to do it if it's different types of things. So it's good to know in advance, like have an outline, like what do you actually, like who do you need, what do you need to do it, all of those, good detailed plan.
I'll bet if you looked at the town warrants for the last 10 years, all those warrants could be attached to something that's in this master plan today. Look at the two big items that failed at that town meeting this year. Marshall Park That's about, we have a goal for that. In the municipal building, we have a goal for that. And I think they specifically failed because they weren't put in perspective. One of the reasons why, one of the biggest reasons was obviously cost, but I don't think that we had a framework for the town to make that decision.
Yeah, it's as if people want to do those things and they're willing to probably spend money on it if
Right.
it's a part of a bigger picture that
Yeah.
we know will fit into it. We're not going to just like tear it down in 2 years because the plan changed.
I mean, there's another piece of this that's not in this presentation is just the messaging around the effort, the ongoing effort. We've talked to a lot of people. A lot of people have volunteered at this point, hundreds, if not collectively thousands of hours. But that still leaves out a lot of people who have little to no idea that this effort has been going on, let alone the specifics of where it is. I don't. That's normal. That's a natural thing. That's not a failure on anyone's part. But I do think that in the kind of months moving forward, and that's I think by asking the committees for their feedback, you're already starting this process, right? Of just kind of disseminating information about this effort, what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the goals are, so they become more familiar with more people. This is almost, yes, people might have disagreements with one particular recommendation or another, but I would be surprised to find anyone or even a small minority opposed to the goals. They're pretty logical, common sense, and have resonated with everyone we've talked to about it. I remember on one occasion somebody came into one of the public meetings at Smokestack, really hot, ready to.
Got him there, didn't it?
Everybody was there and
good or bad.
talked through what we were doing, and left a very much calmer person. So it's not nothing in here is radical.
Yeah, which is why I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, these are all just kind of like beige, bland. And I'm like, that's because they make sense. It's because I'm not like, mentally fighting any of them. So.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I was just saying, like, we're looking at all the recommendations. They all seem very like, like that's fine. Like, yeah, I don't have any like super strong like negative opinion towards them, and it's because they make sense, like for the town. I'm just like, oh yeah, they're good. I'm not like, if you have like a negative reaction to it, it's a lot stronger, like that person coming in. But to me, I just feel very like comfortable with them. So, as Tony was saying earlier, like, it's that nothing's in there that doesn't make sense, like the transportation part, so nothing doesn't like strike me in any like particular way, other than good.
I have a somewhat unrelated question. What is the Marshall Park situation? I moved here a year ago, so I don't know.
It's develop Marshall Park into a more robust park area to do capital improvements to the park. Skateboard, better ball diamonds, walking paths, connection to Marshall Pond.
Playground.
And that got shut down. Why?
It was
It's very expensive.
Money.
Got it.
money.
Do you know where it is?
I don't.
It's probably NASA. If you take a left out of here, I believe it's like maybe 1 mile down on your right. There's a sign and you like drive in. It's like through trees.
Right before Conrad's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
before
seafood place that isn't.
On the right, same side.
Okay.
There's a sign there. So yeah, there's like outdoor activities like a baseball, diamond and this and that. And there's a lot of upgrades that they want to be done. But the upgrades, when you upgrade anything, you have to upgrade a lot of the other infrastructure around it. If you touch it at all, like it's like upgrading buildings or permitting like to new electrical standards. There's a couple of things that like want to be done, but in order to do those things, regardless of what those things were, you have to upgrade everything else. So it's expensive.
It's sizable for a town of your size. It's a sizable
It's a big bite.
open space, and as a result, the cost per square foot is quite reasonable, but it's a big,
Price tag.
Price
yeah,
tag.
attached to it. Okay.
especially if people think of open space. Why is it so expensive? But
We've also been dealing with the school budget crisis for the
Yeah.
past few years, so
Okay.
that
Yeah.
was happening along the same timeline, sort of, and I think a lot of people had a hard time choosing one over the other.
Yeah.
A lot of differing opinions that way too.
Yeah, a lot of the schools are also very old and outdated. So need a lot of upgrades. There's a lot of competing
We need a lot
big
of things.
purchases. Yeah.
Gotta have a plan.
Yes. So if we have a plan and we have it outlined,
Now we just need the money.
We got a lot of elephants we gotta buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yes.
so I mean, the good news, I suppose, is we have a little bit of not rest, but waiting, for feedback from the different committees.
You know, if the planning board had motivated the 15 people that they wanted to be a part of this process 2 years ago, Kim wouldn't have had to send out those spreadsheets. They would have brought those ideas to the table. I applaud the work that she's done over the last 2 months, because we've had to catch up to there being a lack of input from we've had plenty of input from the town citizens to say this is what we want the town to look like. What we haven't had is direct and clear communication from the Conservation Committee and the Planning Board and the Agricultural Commission, because they didn't show up at those meetings. They didn't have a chance to say, hey, we heard somebody say at a town meeting they want to do this or they want to do that. And we hadn't gotten that feedback from those. Kim, you've done a heck of a job. You really have. I mean, I think that feedback coming back now is
Just saying. We'll see.
is an accelerated version of what should have been that dialogue for the last 2 years.
I mean, there were a confluence of different.
Yeah.
I mean, that got us to where we
We are
are
today.
right now, and it is what it is. And it's hard when your staff changed entirely during that time, and for a lot you
Didn't have anybody.
You didn't have anybody. So we really were reliant on volunteer citizens who really pushed it through for a good long while.
And those 15 people couldn't show up, Raleigh, because 7 or 8 of those people are already busy volunteers.
On-
You like the
on-
poor people that are on finance committee. I mean, I would never run for finance committee because you're constantly in meetings. Same for conservation committee, Teddy.
They're long.
Yeah, let me tell you. I mean, that's, and I think that was a breakdown that wasn't recognized. So
We've
Yeah.
had 15 required. No one changed quorum. We never had more than 6.
I know.
We didn't have meetings.
right,
But nobody showed up.
and thank
Yeah.
God she convinced
Almost a
the
year.
planning board set a committee
didn't believe
quorum of 5. Once
We
again,
used
I
to show up
applaud.
every 2 weeks and sit there, talk, and go back home.
Yeah, and nothing would happen.
Jerry, you've been there since the very beginning.
Yeah.
I personally think that, we got a lot of work dragging the feedback out of these committees over the next 6 weeks.
This is the sort of thing that got me into local government. I really wanted to drive change on the local level, because doing it on the state or federal level is much more difficult. And the conservation, I like being on the conservation committee. I'm not sure that their scope is generally just protecting wetlands, as far as my understanding. I'm still waiting to get onto the MACC training. They haven't gotten back to me yet. And I've been on the committee for a couple months now. But I'm happy to help drive some change here and put in the hours here.
Yeah, I think a lot of it relates to, the Wetlands Protection Act, is a big aim of the Conservation Commission, but also the nature, Cowdery Nature Center that we have in town, that's controlled, I believe, under the purview of the Concom. And that's a huge area that a lot of people visit and like to go to. There's issues with people leaving trash and the maintenance of the trails and this and that. So wetlands and the stormwater this, and especially with the stormwater and the management, I think like that impacts the wetlands. So I think there's
Right.
a lot of things that like that touches, that, and then some of the stuff it touches here too, with like access to the trails, like ADA access, more public parking for the trails.
Yeah, and a lot of these objectives like are overlapping. Like on a Venn diagram, like building efforts to improve natural and open spaces and recreational activities, and also like community gathering options, and protecting farmland, like just nature in general. These are all objectives that I think we can kind of hit like two or three birds with one stone. Like a community garden or park. I know you said the Marshall Park thing was a big price tag associated with it, but I think we can definitely group a couple of these things together into like a broader initiative and get the ball rolling. I'm looking forward to it.
Same. The planning part's hard, but I like the doing part. But you can't do without a good plan.
And I'm sure there's many people like just being in town the last year, I met like so many people who are so interested in the nature aspect of our town and like the rural look and feel of it, that I'm sure even if they're like not volunteers on a committee, we could get a lot of volunteers from town members in general.
Yeah, people like to do like the road cleanup. So
Right.
if we had like more organized like road cleanups or trail cleanups, like I think people flock to those.
Like you should, if you haven't seen the memorial garden at the library, there were a ton of people that showed up to put in a bunch of plants there. Robin, the person who like was in like charge of it and like leading everybody, was like overwhelmed with the number of people that came to help. It was really nice.
Everybody loves libraries.
Yeah.
The library's amazing here.
Yeah, our library is really nice.
Yes.
So I guess if we're waiting till October 1st for feedback, what's the plan from now till then?
So we need to keep advertising, I guess, and like following up with the committees. That's a great question.
If you don't hear from a committee, do we just move forward?
Oh
We'll
no.
definitely keep like message them. So what you should is, so we've emailed them out. I would like optimally for them to respond and at least say, I acknowledge this email, we'll put it into our next committee meeting, which some of them have responded to saying, if they don't get back to you, or whoever has sent the initial email, maybe after a week, or if you're impatient, sooner than that, message them again and say, hey, I am like looking for this feedback, please let me know if you've gotten this.
Do you have a list of people that have already responded specifically to you?
I will put that together.
Because I know
I know
that
what you mean.
people were CC'd on emails, so they may be responding to you and not to the person that sent additional email.
Right, yeah, and it was really aimed like having less people like send it, like, you know, one person to send it,
Yeah.
so that there wouldn't be any like foreign problems with like if they were to accidentally send it back to
Right.
reply all. So
I just want to make
I'll
sure
put
that
together
I'm not missing a response because it went to you instead of me, or the
true.
other way around.
Yeah, I can keep you all updated on that like administrative task of like if we've received an email back from a committee acknowledging.
Does the commission have to fill out that spreadsheet as like a quorum at their meeting, or can they do it outside of the meeting?
Optimally together, well, they can all do it themselves and then go to their own meeting and talk about it, but
Okay.
ideally I would like one from each committee. I'm not super interested in receiving 5 spreadsheets from one committee
but
that.
can we
Okay,
discuss it?
let me tell you what I'm going to do with the, because I got one, because I'm the chair of the APDC. Is that I sent the, fortunately, we only have a couple items to look at on that spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, here are the items. I'll discuss, the different columns that are, is this something that we're a part of? Is something we have? And then what I want to do is that when we get done filling out that spreadsheet, I want there to be a vote of the Architectural Preservation District Commission that says, this is our input, not Tony Scullombrini's input, not Richard McGrath's input, not Nathan Lockwood's input, but this is the APDC Commission input.
So are you filling it out together though, or is each
We're-
member
we're-
filling it out separately? and
We're
then
gonna
giving
have
it to you?
we're gonna have a discussion at our September meeting. I sent it out to them and said, I'm gonna explain this at our meeting tomorrow night. And then, at the September meeting, we'll take the discussion that we have tomorrow night and the discussion that we have in September, and we'll make sure that we have all the columns filled out. And then when I transmit this back to Kim, it's gonna say, this was done by vote of the Architectural Preservation District Commission. And I would really recommend, that in terms of next steps, Kim, I would suggest that we use our fourth Wednesday of August meeting is to kind of have an assessment of who has actually started this review process with their various committees. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could send out a note to those that you have, and for those who haven't responded, then when we get together at the end of August, you say, Teddy, go check on this group, Teddy, go check on this group, and that we collectively go back and say, why have you not responded?
Right.
And what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, and if people have time, like if we're really not getting a response,
Go to the
I would
meeting.
just go to the meeting
Yeah,
and be
I mean,
like, hey, I have this, I have a public
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah.
And if you received a positive feedback, like, oh, we thought we got back to you, or, I meant to respond to you, like, thanks for coming, like, great, 100%. If you're met with like, oh, I don't care about this, like, there's only so much that we can do except say like, oh, it's important because of X, Y, Z, and let them know. I mean, hopefully people will be amenable to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine people volunteering their time would have such a
Yeah, I think there's
such an attitude.
You'd hope.
there's three big groups here that we're gonna probably have to follow up with. One is the select board. Because there's a lot of stuff on that list for the select board, Glenn, and you just got that. And you guys already have a busy agenda every meeting you go to. So I think that there's gonna be fall. The next group is gonna be the planning board, Tim. And then the third group is gonna be the school committee. Now the rest, I think they'll all kind of get in line, and they'll, like APDC, we're gonna be nice. Parks, you've already gotten some feedback from Parks.
Yeah, Parks
You know,
and
Conservation Committee, the commission, I think you guys will respond. But I think those are gonna be the three that when we get together in August, we're gonna have to say, all right, what are you guys doing? What's happening? And you're gonna tell us what you're gonna do.
Yeah, a couple of my conservation commissioners said that they would be, have taken this role if they weren't so busy. So I'm sure we can get it on our agenda and sort that out pretty quickly. I'll send an email once.
Does that make sense? Yeah?
Once
Yes.
we adjourn.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, so see.
And that's the
And Glenn, I don't know, what's Jen doing with her staff? This goes back to the fact that we don't have a planner in town. And, the planner would have been here and they would have been running around with Jen and the other members that have an impact, other town departments have an impact in this process. But has anybody talked to her about this?
I think they're supposed to be advertising pretty soon for the planner
Planner,
position.
yeah.
I think that's.
But what do you think she's gonna do with the things that our town department, we're gonna have to wait for her to get a plan, for her to get input?
I don't know.
Can you ask her that question? Because I think there's a whole bunch of stuff here that's.
Yeah.
And
I'm
she
sure
herself has said, I want a good master plan.
Yeah.
This
I'm
is
sure
her
she'll have-
opportunity.
She will definitely give you input. There's no doubt.
Okay,
Yeah, you're assigned to send that to her.
what was that?
You were assigned to send that to her.
I did.
Yeah, so far planning and parks have gotten back to me. Saying that they'll put it on their agenda.
Given that is your agenda, do you meet us there for that meeting on the 27th?
Unless people would want to talk more about implementation and going through some other plans, but you sent us those, so I don't think so.
I would say keep us on for the fourth Wednesday of August. And then we're gonna know, I think, by our Tuesday meeting before then,
Right.
what kind of questions we're getting from committees.
Yeah.
And then maybe that Tuesday conversation we have with you, we can wave you off. How's that sound?
Yeah,
That sound
sounds
reasonable?
great.
I'd rather have you scheduled.
Yeah,
then tell you-
it's,
then
it's,
tell
in
you
my,
don't
it's in my
come.
schedule.
Right?
It's in my schedule.
Okay, good. And then we can tell you, don't come. You're gonna go do something else.
So we for the fourth Wednesday of the month, I have the conference room library, the library conference room booked. So that is, if you're not aware of where that is, you walk into the front room, you immediately turn right, and it's the room all the way at the end. So we'll be in there. But also they have a good setup for Zoom and all of that. So I have that booked for every fourth Wednesday of the month. So we have that set up at least.
And that one we had is virtual. Like we didn't.
Yeah, you can just attend virtually. The setup in there is good for calling in. Yeah. So, for those of you who haven't seen maybe this as closely or haven't looked, this is kind of what the spreadsheet looks like. So, Rami's team made this spreadsheet so that here's a master list of everything. Each tab, like whatever is filtered into here, it goes into the tab. So this one has all the select board ones automatically filter into here. So it's kind of cool because you can just add one in here, refilter it, and it populates to update. So it has all of these questions at the top that, is this controlled by our boards, bylaws, or policies? So like this is their opportunity to say, no, like we're not in control of this area, like this is not relative to us. If they say yes, or maybe it is relative to them, they just don't have a policy about it, that's also a possibility. If they do, we're asking if they have a policy, what it is, or a bylaw. This one goes into how does this recommendation align with your current goals and priorities, so that it helps get the buy-in from them and see how easy it is to be to integrate into their what they're doing, their actions that they're taking, and things that they're approving. We have a question about if there's anything that needs further clarification. So it's a scary question to ask, but then describe what it is. And some of these are drop downs, so hopefully people get that and they don't start typing and be like, well, I can't, I guess you can, but then it gives you an error. So some of these things are drop downs if they're yes or no questions. This question here is related to your commission, because if we didn't put that in, even that I put that in, I'm sure people are going to give all of their thoughts about something else that doesn't really pertain to their specific committee. But anyways, what's the impact of implementing this? If we were to do this, what would that mean for your committee or how your committee interacts with the town? Are there potential unintended consequences for the recommendation? Is there anything we haven't thought of that this is going to impact, this? Obviously we think houses, increased houses on the sewer line, we're gonna have more sewer and water use and all of that. That's obvious to us, but there might be other things that we haven't thought of. Are there other committees not listed that need to be coordinated? We didn't necessarily think of every committee, we don't know what everybody does, and then any additional feedback. So hopefully these questions give us the feedback that we want of, will this be easy to align with your goals, and how will it impact, trying to get buy-in and make it as easy as possible. So, I'm not used to not having a bunch of things to do. So for I guess in the future we can talk about the October, once we get all the feedback, I'll feed it to you guys, to you, Rami, as we receive it, so that we can start compiling it and then trying to make sense of it. Once it makes, if we put it all together, let's say we have some edits and some modifications, then we can start with, your graphics and making it better, and then presenting it at sometime maybe, when's the fall meeting? November, right? Okay. So that's actually pretty good timing, because we'll get it all by October. We'll have a month to kind of sort stuff through and then have something to present. Is that enough time for some sort of graphic making? Well, not to just do a draft, have something.
I was gonna say, I'm worried, but
Well, the graphics are easy.
yeah,
It's the content and making sure that it's
I think
what we all want.
I think it'll be it would take a full court press to have a draft by the special time.
Let's aim for it. It sure would be.
Yeah, well, we could at
Be
least
lovely
have,
to get it wrapped up.
yeah. We could at
Um,
least have like the main goal, and then all of the actions underneath it that we've more or less.
To be honest with you,
aligned
we're
on.
going to start to lay it out
Yeah.
and change the content. So when it comes to doing the final,
So you'll take our input and just do it.
we'll just
Okay.
change it because otherwise,
That's a different story.
waiting until it's settled is not going.
That's
Maybe
not
we have a
really-
chance.
Yeah. And so for presenting at special town meeting, I would probably imagine like, probably we get like 10 minutes of people's attention, and that's like a good.
Depends on when you go in town meeting.
Right.
By the end, we were
Yeah.
down to like 40 people.
Yeah. So also like I guess for that, like how do we let someone know that we want to do this to present at town meeting? How do we?
That's select board
Has to
town
get
manager.
approved- Yeah, it has to get approved to be on
Yeah.
by the select board.
Yeah.
And mostly Todd Andrew, because she'll
And
develop the
moderated.
schedule. Yeah,
Right.
and she'll communicate that with Tim.
Okay. So if we have plans to do this at this moment in time, I should email Jen, Tim, and select board.
Yeah, when we get to that point. I mean, I'd say you could do that right now. I think you could say to Jen, we're gonna try and get a draft before a special town meeting. Keep that in mind.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like be like aware.
She can always cancel it, at the last minute. You can
Or
always
you
say
can
we're
just
not
say
doing our
that.
report.
Yeah.
So
So that being said, is there like for presenting it, is this something that like everybody who does there multiple who wants to participate? Everybody could do
Nope.
their own like everyone could take a goal and talk about it.
well,
Don't
Kim,
you want to help?
we'll give you all the moral support you need. But having multiple people get up and make presentations more times. I mean, I think that you've done a great job. You have the greatest amount of knowledge about what we're doing here, and so I think that, and you're the chair. Now the other thing that you have to do is you have to get Matt Brenner's concurrence from the planning board, because this is their project, and he told us, back in April that the planning board wants to make this presentation. I disagreed with that when he said that, but I understand where he's coming from. So I think that's a conversation that you and Matt ought to have.
Okay, I'll talk to
And
Matt
then,
first.
yeah, and then, but I think in terms of who gets up and stands and says at the town, this is the draft master plan, it's you.
Let's see what Matt says.
And we can help support that with slides and
Yes, that would be great.
that's easy.
I'm known to make very boring slides. My boss hates it. I like black and white text. If I start using some sort of something, just like this is shocking. So yours is very exciting and interesting, and I couldn't do it. I'm
Just-
like black and white bullet points.
Just don't read from the slide, that's my only.
Yeah, yeah.
People can
Well,
read.
especially like because we've seen all the presentations, it's like so wordy that, and then or not useful. It's like you don't know what you're looking at. So
Right.
yes, I can make presentations, but not make them look pretty.
Is that Tuesday, the 12th of November? Is that the
It's usually what it is.
The 12th of November is a Wednesday.
No, it's a Tuesday. No.
maybe I'm looking at? Oh, sorry, that was 2024.
Yeah.
November.
15th?
Is it always the second? It's not. Is it?
I don't know.
It changes.
For some reason, I have it on the 9th of this is the week that the town meeting will happen, but
Okay.
not a
I
specific
think we're
day.
picking the day pretty soon.
Oh, okay, good. So
Yeah, I
it's
was
not
gonna
It's,
say-
it's not in
finalized.
the calendar yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's not
it's
up
not, it's not on the calendar.
So it's great.
We'll let you know that, Brian. Early November for your planning purposes.
And were we going to do another like public info session or just town meeting?
Well, town meeting is a draft, right?
It is.
It's not
Set the
a
calendar.
final.
And like should that happen probably after, because people at town meeting are gonna see it and they'll have some sort of emotion on it and they'll probably wanna come and tell someone about how they feel. They can,
And then,
Come to
you know,
that later.
clarification and questions, and
Yeah.
it might be a good idea to do it after.
That's risky.
Yeah, it's
It's just either way, I think,
yeah.
honestly.
And more people will see it at town meeting, at least, and tell people about it.
Because
Right.
it's not being voted on, it's just a draft
it's
presentation.
just an
Yeah, so
So
informational.
we're not looking for anybody to
I would
condone
Oh,
or,
yeah.
I would
Oppose.
even use it as there is going to be a public meeting. Here's what we're going to talk about. This is your last chance to weigh in. It's just in my experience between Thanksgiving and the New Year, there are about 3 days you can have a meeting.
oh, yeah.
Because people's heads are elsewhere and life gets
Then you're
regular
gonna
schedules get turned upside down,
get- Then you're gonna get bad weather, people don't wanna
and
leave.
there's going to be that.
Yeah. Maybe like the first week of December, because it's 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, and then a few weeks before the other.
We should also probably know when town meeting's really gonna be, too,
Yeah.
because that will help.
Yeah. But I think we agree it would be good to do it after. I mean, it may not be great because of the time of year, but relative after would be good.
I mean, Thanksgiving is late this year. If we could get it in before Thanksgiving.
Like the week after the town meeting.
Yeah, I'm not really sure when the town meeting is, but if it were the following week.
Yeah.
That would be a good target.
Yeah.
Because we're really not, even then, it wouldn't be for a vote. It's gonna
It's
be,
just for
and this is what
exposure.
the plan is. We presented last week, we got some feedback, we got some input, we made some changes. This is it. This is what we're doing. At some point, you gotta call the question.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question, are we looking for?
It's the final presentation. So when we say the plan's final, people can't complain, which they will anyhow.
And we also need to make sure we can find a place at the time we want it. And
Yeah. I like smoke stars.
I'm a big fan.
So we were talking about presenting a final one. Where would that be?
The final plan?
yeah, at the public meeting.
At that public meeting.
Oh, the week
But
after?
we wouldn't have, I
We
mean,
wouldn't have it.
we wouldn't have a final plan by then because we're just presenting the draft at town meeting. That's only gives you a
Well,
week to have a
Yeah,
finalized.
the
If you're
planning board
presenting
needs to
10
approve
minutes,
it. Yeah.
you're not presenting a draft. You're presenting a
High level, yeah.
very high level.
Yeah.
Right, so do you think a week later having a final plan is
I guess
achievable?
Does it
If
need to be
if nothing
approved by the
changes,
planning board?
Right. If
I-
nothing changes.
So there's two issues here. One is, when's the last time you talked to the public about the plan?
it's been a
It's
while.
been a long
It's been a
time.
long time.
Yeah, so you gotta take that, you gotta schedule a meeting to talk about this with the public. And then there has to be a plan presented to the planning board for a vote of the planning board.
I mean, we were earlier in the process, we were talking about having that meeting in October.
Mhm.
And if we had it in October, it would be one of the points of input in addition to the committees. Which I think might make sense.
Yeah.
As I'm thinking.
How would we gather input? And then, like, how would we gather input?
Well, we'd have a public
And
meeting
that-
and
and just-
we'd sort of have breakout opportunity. If you want to talk about this goal, come to this table and we'll help facilitate this discussion. And this one we'll talk about housing, this one we'll talk
Yeah,
about
that's
open
a good idea.
spaces and gathering spaces.
And then we do a high level review at the special town meeting.
Yes,
And then you prepare a document that now goes before the planning board
Yeah.
for a vote, which is also a public
and,
meeting.
and I think that's
That's it.
the most logical.
Yeah. I like that approach.
So have this info session public meeting before the presentation at town meeting.
Yeah, because then at the town meeting presentation, you can say, we had these recommendations, we solicited opinions and feedback from a slew of committees, we held a public meeting where we got citizen input, and we're about to release at the planning board meeting the final draft.
Okay. Yeah,
I think that makes.
that's
Makes
just
sense.
that's another
That's-
way for sure. That makes sense.
Otherwise, I think we're looking at February.
Yeah.
Realistically.
So, but the info session, so the public meeting that's not town meeting will have to happen after October, but before 15
I
November
suggested.
9th.
I think it should happen in October.
In October.
So while we're digesting the feedback from the committees, we're also soliciting feedback from the general public.
So can we make that October meeting count?
We want the planning board to vote in
Um,
November also.
No, that's a conversation you need to have with Matt before we make that decision.
Okay.
So if we made that public meeting our second Wednesday of the month of October, that gives, like you've said to the committee members, you got to the 1st of October to give us your input.
Yep.
And we're gonna start harassing them at the end of August.
Yeah, so we have the 8th and the 22nd. That's the second, third, fourth.
Yeah, so
The 8th.
the 8th. I was, because then that would give you a little more time, Rami, to make any
Digest.
adjustments, right? And then we go to town meeting, sometime in November, like the 11th, 12th, 13th, somewhere along that line.
Do we want to meet again before we have our public, do we want to have our own public meeting before we have the smokestacks public meeting after we get all the committee meeting stuff back, or?
I think that should be determined.
Because that would be our meeting day.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
so we wouldn't have time to talk about it until
Right.
everybody that Rami would get the stuff, we wouldn't have enough time to talk about it before we
I
then
see.
presented it at the place.
Yeah. But the 22nd would probably be too late for you, right?
I mean, we could also just see if we could remove we don't have to meet on the 22nd, but maybe we meet on the 15th to do the other meeting. So we could meet on the 8th and then we can do our
public
public
meeting,
meeting on the 15th.
15th.
I'll be at the school meeting. Oh, that's
Oh, right, it
Every
is that
person.
one, that's it, okay.
so. I mean, I don't have to be at the public meeting, but there's not, anyone at the school committee wouldn't be able to go to a public meeting if they wanted to. But
Yeah, that's true. This is a pretty open night for some other boards. I think one other board meets tonight.
The alternative
ZBA
can would be for us to meet on the 1st of October, a week before the 8th.
that's totally school committee.
But it's still,
First and third
First and
Wednesday
Yeah, I
is school
know.
committee, second and fourth is
Yeah.
but we probably won't have final input from all the committees until the 1st.
Mm-hmm. So why is the October 22nd not good for the smokestack?
we were just trying to give Ronnie enough time if town meeting is in early November.
But
early to
If
mid.
Yeah,
I
that gives
understand,
us
like
10
3 weeks
meeting is
though.
very high level, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to get into the weeds.
Right.
We can give an overview that's not entirely different. I mean, along the lines of what we did.
Just discuss
Yeah,
it.
today.
So
yeah.
smokestacks is the 22nd.
So we could do smokestacks on the 22nd.
I will find out how to make that happen. Talk to Gypsy. Or I'll just call him.
I think everybody is doing the smokestack,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. All right. So Wednesday, October 22nd. What time would we be interested in doing this?
What we had them done at 7:30, 7
I feel like they were sick.
There were
Six or
6:30, 6:30. I think 6:30 to 8:30 was the.
Yeah,
Yeah. So 6:30. Yeah. Because then that gets people time to they'll get
have dinner.
drink. Yeah,
Mhm.
dinner,
So-
get some coffee or something. Okay.
I have to hold back from having too many coffees. And I don't
Okay.
sleep that much.
I'm on.
Okay. So we'll meet,
Being
Smarter,
myself
smarter than I am.
we'll meet normal on the 8th, and then I'll figure out the smokestacks for the 22nd, and then we'll have town meeting. We can go over the slides probably. Rami, you can send us the slides in advance so we can talk through them
Which slides? The
for
ones-
the town meeting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I'll send you, I don't know how large the file will be, but
Will it
Either
be
send
like
you a
in
link or send you
PowerPoint
the
or
file.
PDF? Like how do we? What's your file type?
we use Keynote, which is Mac's PowerPoint.
Will it open
But-
up as a PowerPoint? If I have like, if we, I don't know how
PowerPoint
we
will
present it.
do damage to it.
It will?
It just does funny things.
Okay.
But I can export it as a PDF, and then you can just
Yeah.
use the PDF.
I guess how do we present things at town meeting? Like, do they have their own computer and I just like pop in a USB? I can ask. I don't know if anyone knows.
I feel like people have brought their own, but I feel like other people haven't brought their own. I think it's kind of a mix of things.
No, I'll figure it out. I'm not
But I
surprised it's not
remember-
consistent.
And let us know actually.
Dropbox or something.
Yeah, that would be probably
Yeah.
If they have a Mac, but yeah.
We can also make it into a Google slideshow, so it's just up there and you can pull it from the cloud.
Yeah, we can figure it out. I'll ask some questions to people and figure it out. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to Matt about presenting at town meeting. I'm gonna also then, once I get his approval, talk to Jen and Tim Murphy about presenting at town meeting. October 20th, we'll continue to collect feedback from the committees. If you don't hear back, message them, go to the meeting, let me know if you need any help. By October 1st, we'll get all their feedback. That's my, I hope everybody responds. I'll send it to Rami as we go. October 8th, we will meet to just, see what that feedback was, kind of go through it, make any final stuff that we need to do before the 22nd, which has our info session, hopefully. If so, it's next week. If not, we'll find somewhere else, but that's our goal. November 9th-ish, we'll have the town meeting, we'll do the presentation. After that, the planning board will vote. So this is all pending on what planning board thinks, but that is our proposed plan. They might want to look at it as well a bit more on their own end before the presentation, or even present it themselves. We'll find out. Was I missing anything? I think
No.
It's shocking, my brain still works. Long day. I'm gonna wait for Tony to get back in case he has anything else besides the journey. So we'll wait to see. Before we, does anyone have any other things they'd like to talk about before our next meeting on the 27th in the library or on Zoom? Well, hopefully the audio is better. I just need to my microphone. I just don't talk loud.
And we'll begin to lay out the document. I think it makes sense for us to weigh in maybe in the check-in meetings with Matt about where we think implementation recommendations for implementation might be adding, so he can get a sense of planning boards. Okay. And
Yeah,
he's
so-
been keen actually for quite some time. He's been wanting to talk about implementation. So, support a robust. But,
Perfect. But thanks to everybody for all of your help as well. We have to all be here for this to work, so I appreciate the time that you all spent as well. We're waiting for you to get back in case you have any other final thoughts, but we went over the plan and someone would like a motion to
I'll move to adjourn.
Alright,
I'll second.
great. So since we're on the line, we'll do roll call. Sandra, Vicky first. I don't know if you can hear us, but there's a motion to adjourn in a second. Would you, so doing a roll call vote for adjourning at 8:09. Okay, I don't think it. We'll get to you. Jerry,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Teddy,
Yes. Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
and I for myself. Sandra, if you can hear us, do you vote to adjourn? All right. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Have a great night, everyone. And we lost. I don't know.